Have you ever bought something not just for what it was, but for the good it promised to do? It's a really powerful idea, isn't it? This belief that we can actually change the world with our wallets. Today, we're going to dig into the rise and the, let's say, complex reality of social entrepreneurship. And we'll start with one company that turned a super simple product into a global movement.
Right. It all kicks off with a site that's probably super familiar to you, this simple canvas shoe. Back in 2006, TOMS made a promise that this shoe could do a whole lot more than just get you from point A to point B. They said it could deliver a second pair to a child who needed one.
And boom, this is the result. I mean, this is the kind of pure excitement that brands can only dream of. It was all sparked by a beautifully simple idea that felt totally revolutionary. Buy a pair, give a pair. It felt good, it was easy, and boy did it take off like a rocket. So yeah, this simple promise, it really tapped into this deep desire we all have to contribute, to do some good. So let's break down the powerful emotional pull of this one-for-one model and the much bigger idea behind it. Okay, so at the very heart of this whole movement is the social entrepreneur. It's really a mix of two different worlds. You're using the engine of business, market ideas, profit, scaling up, but not just for money. The goal is to intentionally create what's called social value. It's all about blending purpose with profit. And this data right here shows exactly why this model just exploded. It wasn't just some clever marketing gimmick. It actually met a real demand from us, the consumers. I mean, look at these numbers. A staggering 94% of people said they would switch brands to support a cause. We're actively looking for ways to make our shopping count for something. But of course, TOMS didn't just appear out of nowhere. It was kind of the pop culture spark that lit a much larger fire. A revolution in how we think about business, charity, and making a real difference. This idea has been building for decades. It goes way back to the 70s with Yunus pioneering microloans, and then into the 80s with organizations like Ashoka building these global support networks. TOMS in 2006 was the company that just blew it up into the mainstream, making it accessible for every single shopper. This movement got so big that the system itself had to adapt. To make this blend of profit and purpose official, whole new legal structures were invented. Things like the B Corp or the hybrid model. These are all ways to literally write social good right into a company's DNA. But, and this is a big but, this is where things get tricky. It's one thing to say you have a mission to create social value. It's a whole other thing to prove you're actually doing it. How do we know if any of this stuff is really working? And that is the central nagging question, isn't it? Are we actually changing lives, or are we just, changing our spending habits? Good intentions are a fantastic place to start, for sure, but they are not the same thing as measurable positive impact. You see, the traditional problem with a lot of aid has always been this focus on inputs, not outcomes. We tend to measure success by the amount of money spent or the number of shoes donated, instead of by the actual long-term change in people's lives. So to try and fix this, people came up with new methods like the social return on investment, or SROI. It's an attempt to put a real number on the good that's being done. But here's the catch. How on earth do you quantify soft outcomes like a boost in someone's self-confidence or a community's happiness? It's incredibly, incredibly difficult. And that leads us away from a tricky question to a deeply unsettling one. What if these well-intentioned efforts, these gifts of shoes and clothes, what if they aren't just ineffective? What if they are actually causing harm? This quote, it gets right to the heart of that fear. When a flood of free stuff arrives from overseas, what happens to the local tailor or the shoemaker or even the rice farmer? Well, they can't compete with free. And when their businesses collapse, a piece of the local economy collapses right along with them. And listen, this is not just some hypothetical fear. The data is pretty stark. One study from 2008 linked the import of used clothing to Africa with a 40% drop in the continent's own apparel production. These are local industries just being hollowed out. And behind that production number is a very real human cost. That same study linked these imports to a 50% decline in apparel employment. That's half the jobs in an entire industry gone. The ripple effects of that are just devastating. Okay, so now let's turn the lens away from the communities receiving the aid and point it back at ourselves, the consumers. What does doing good through shopping do to our own brains, our own behavior? The answer might actually surprise you. Check out this fascinating study from the University of Toronto. It found that people who made an ethical purchase, buying green products, actually acted less ethically afterward. They shared less money and were more likely to cheat. It's a psychological thing called moral licensing, the idea that making one good choice gives us a subconscious permission slip to be a little less good later on. And this gets layered with something called the halo effect. When a company has a strong social mission, we tend to give it a pass on everything else. We just assume that because they're doing good over here, they must be ethical in all their practices. This can make us way less critical, and it ties right back to those unintended economic problems we just saw. Our desire to feel good might actually be blinding us to the harm being done. So, where does this all leave us? The goal here isn't to just label social entrepreneurship as good or bad. The real goal is to move past those easy answers and start asking smarter, more critical questions. This little debate from our source material, it sums up the core arguments perfectly. On one side, hey, the one-for-one model is inspiring, it gets people involved, it can spread a positive movement. But on the other side, critics argue it's just a band-aid that doesn't fix root problems, it creates dependency, and can hurt local businesses. And you know what? Both sides have a point. Now, this quote presents a radically simple alternative idea. After all the complex aid programs and product donations, what if the problem is just what it sounds like, a lack of cash? And what if the solution is just as simple? And get this, there's powerful evidence for this simple idea. A study in Uganda gave unconditional cash grants to young people. No strings attached, and the results were incredible. Their earnings shot up by nearly 50%. They actually worked more hours, and they invested that cash in skills and assets to build their own futures. So in the end, this is really what it all boils down to. The whole evolution from old school charity to social enterprise has made doing good feel easier than ever. But it also means we have to be smarter than ever. The next time you're faced with a purchase that promises to change the world, try to dig a little deeper than the marketing. Ask yourself, is this actually empowering people or is it creating dependency? Is this solving a problem at its root or is it really just helping me feel like I did? That's the question that really matters.